We be live. How's my audio? Let me know in the live chat. Hi, everyone. Oh, I see some of our regulars are here. All right, cool. So you guys know what we're going to do. Do you guys know? We're going to be reviewing this recent debate between, on the Muslim side, we have Daniel Haqiqatjou, and on the ex-Muslim side, we have our very own Harris Sultan. Yay! All right, I'm going to be honest with you guys, all right, before we start this. How's the audio? Let me know. Okay, Marcel is saying, looking forward to an objective review as I am certain AR, I think, will deliver. All right, well, let me be objective. I'm going to fail at being objective. Obviously, we all have our biases. I'm going to always try to be objective, but I'm almost certainly going to fail. And that's why you guys are in the live chat to help me be objective, okay? On the topic of being objective, what I am going to do, Harris Sultan is on the ex-Muslim side, who is on our side, right? And I'm going to try to call him out whenever he makes a mistake that I think is wrong, or if I think he was being unfair, or if I think he didn't understand what Daniel was trying to say, okay? But I'm going to be honest with you guys. He did better than I thought, okay? And I'm going to tell you why. And I see a lot of criticism by some other ex-Muslims. I still have some objections with what Harris is saying, especially at the beginning. I think his opening was terrible. And I think his second prepared statement that he had was also not very good. But it turned, I think Harris saved it at the, once it went forward, once the debate section actually started. I think Harris did very well. And I think he did well for the reasons why people, ex-Muslims, are saying he did bad. By the way, I really like the fact, even though I disagree with a lot of ex-Muslims out there that think Harris did bad, I like it so much that we have so many ex-Muslims like disagreeing. Like that helps me think like we're not a tribal, like we're not just going to take sides just because somebody's on our side. So that's a good thing that there's so many people like fighting with each other. Like people like, oh, we don't have unity. Good. We don't need unity. We need to be critical of each other. That's a good thing. Okay. And I'm going to be critical of Harris as much as possible. Okay. Again, I'm going to be biased. Again, obviously, I'm going to try not to be biased. But again, you're delusional if you think that you're going to be able to be completely objective. Nobody can accomplish that. You're going to just have to try and make the best efforts, become close to objective as possible. Never going to be absolutely 100% objective. Okay. All right, so I'm going to try to be hard. Okay, so let me actually tell you, let me tell you why I think the reasons why other ex-Muslims, a lot of ex-Muslims think Harris did bad is actually the reason why I think he did better. And I'm going to tell you guys, I think he did better than I would have ever done, right? Like if I was doing this debate, what Harris did was a much better strategy than what I would have done. So the criticism of Harris right now is that he didn't respond to a lot of the main things that Daniel said. Like a lot of things that Daniel threw out there as an attack on modernity, Harris didn't respond to them, or if he responded, he just touched upon it lightly and didn't move that. Oh, we have a visitor. Guys, we have a guest. Hey! Oh my gosh, she's you. Oh, look at you, so cute, so cute, so cute. Hello. Hello, little lady. Hi, little lady. Say hi. Hi. Okay. She just comes here because she knows I'm a reliable source of petting. Oh, no Iranian bias as well. You're right. Danielle is Iranian. So I might be, no, I'm just kidding. What was I saying? Oh yeah. Daniel has a strategy of, he's uncomfortable. I shouldn't assume. It comes across as him being uncomfortable in the position of defending Islam. He's more interested in attacking modernity, attacking Enlightenment values, and showing how much they have failed attacking human rights, and showing how much they have failed humanity, and then using that failure as his argument for failure as a way to say the solution is Islam, right? So he doesn't like it, the fact that slavery in Islam, child marriage in Islam, wife beating in Islam, violence in Islam, he doesn't want that to be the topic of the discussion. He wants the topic of the discussion for us to be on the defense, him bringing out replacement rates, fertility, marriage, relationships, family structure, and him claiming that modernity is destroying all of this. And we who are on the side of modernity, we have to be on the side of like defending this. We should be the people. He should be on the attack side. He wants us to be able to defend. He wants us to show how much we fail at defending all of that, right? And I think that's a clever strategy, because honestly, Islam is indefensible, right? So if he's on the position of defending Islam, it's easier for us to make him look bad to most average audience, right? And he wants us to look bad by making us, instead of attacking Islam, for us to be defending modernity, right? So that's the strategy. And the reason why Harris did a better, and I will go through this together, the reason why Harris did a better job at debating Daniel than I would have, is because I'm such a simp for modernity and Enlightenment values and human rights, that when he attacks these values and ideas, my knee-jerk reaction would be to actually respond and try to prove him wrong, right? And I think that should be done. And I'm going to do that here today with you guys, and maybe part 2 or part 3. I'm going to respond to the things that Harris didn't respond to, like when Daniel brings them up. I'm going to try to respond to those positions. But I'm glad that Harris actually didn't play that game. I'm glad that Harris was like, what? Like, we're talking about Sharia here. Like, you're talking about the issues with modernity. You promote slavery. You promote child marriage. You promote wife beating. You're on the side of violence. Like, he touched upon, like, he either didn't address the issues of modernity, or just touched it lightly and then moved on to, like, the reason why I think his strategy was much better than my strategy would have been is because the audience, like, the people who are on side of Daniel, most likely are not going to change their mind, okay? And the people who are ex-Muslims, okay, they're already left Islam. They're probably not going to go back to Islam, okay? The audience that Harris was trying to reach, which was clever, much clever than I would have done, is the people who are like, maybe don't know what they think about Islam, or like they don't know like who's like, what, like, is Islam really that bad? Are people exaggerating? And it's one thing for us ex-Muslims or people who are anti-Islamic values to come and say that, but it's much easier to demonstrate that when actual Muslims are saying these things. Like when you're not hearing an ex-Muslim say Islam promotes slavery, Islam promotes child marriage, Islam is pro-violence, Islam is pro-wife beating. You want the Muslim to say that. And if for most the average audience, they're like, holy crap, like, are you serious? Like, Harris doesn't want himself to, like, he made it so that Daniel is saying the things that the audience needs to hear, right? That was his strategy. So I would have, if it was me debating Daniel, I would have wasted so much time defending modernity that you would hear Daniel less of Daniel saying these things that he needs to say to the average audience. The reason why a lot of ex-Muslims don't get why it was important for Harris to do that is because ex-Muslims, a lot of them have gone through the process of having their own answers to the things Daniel was saying, and they're like, why is Harris not saying this? Like, because they're in the mindset, like, they are more than the average person that, like, okay, I have issues with Islam. They actually, like, a lot of the people in the ex-Muslim community who listen to debates and stuff like this, they have they have their own philosophy and they have their own answers to this. And when Daniel says something and they think like, oh my God, Daniel is saying something that is so wrong, this is how I would respond to it. And they hear and they see Harris is not saying that, they pull their hair out. They're like, Harris, why are you not answering that? This would be the answer. Like you have to destroy what he just said, right? But they are looking at everything from an ex-Muslim perspective. Like, yeah, most ex-Muslims would want to hear that response, but this is not for ex-Muslims. Ex-Muslims have already left Islam. This is what Harris did was so much more useful. I mean, given the size of the audience of the people who were watching this debate, it was very important that Harris made Daniel actually defend those things, those horrible values, for more people to see what he truly is about. All right, so let me actually pay attention a little bit to the live chat. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not critical of what Harris said. There are many things that he said that I'm so not for, or I would say that he should have said something else, or he wasted his time saying this. Okay, so I'm going to be critical of Harris. But overall, like especially once the two opening statements that he had that I think were not very useful at all. I mean, not at all. We'll see. He then moved on to a much better strategy. Like he was a much better debater at this than I would have been. However, for the purpose of this stream, like a lot of people who wanted to see what the actual responses were. Oh, here's another important point. Okay, these are important points. Okay, so let me tell you. I was skeptical of how Harris would do because I knew Daniel. Like I watch a lot of Harris Sultan's videos and I watch a lot of Daniel Haqiqatjou's videos, and I know that Daniel is aware of a lot of arguments against modernity and Enlightenment values, right? And it seems like it. Again, I'm trying not to assume things. Sometimes I will, and I'm not noticing that I am, but I'm trying not to assume things. It seems like his sources of assumptions, like his sources of what he's studying is right-leaning content creators' attacks on modernity, Western right-wing, because obviously Islam is right-wing as well, but as Western right-leaning content creators' attack on modernity, left-leaning content creators attack on modernity. Like, so for example, right-leaning content creators attack on modernity when he wants to talk about family, the importance of family. By the way, I have this ready every time he makes that argument. Okay, so his obsession with family and marriage and modernity destroying relationships and all of that attack on modernity, he seems to be getting that from right-leaning content creators. And then the left-leaning content attack on modernity, he seems to be getting that, he seems to be using that when it comes to be an attack on imperialism and the influence of Western interventions on other countries. It seems like his sources of that arguments is like Western left-leaning content creators. The arguments are very similar to that. And then the third group of people that he seems to be getting arguments from is the incel community, when it comes to his apparent tactic of convincing people that if you accept Islam, you would get laid more often. Okay, so we'll get to that as well. So incels, right-leaning and left-leaning content creators is his sources of attack on modernity. Interestingly, there's not much in Islam that he can use to attack modernity. Like these are new. I mean, obviously because modernity is modern, but it's not like he doesn't have any Islamic principles that he uses against modernity. These are other people's content, ways of thinking. Again, I'm assuming here that he's using against modernity. And the issue with that is that it doesn't, like, I thought a lot more of Daniel. I thought he was smarter, but then after this debate, I don't know if he's not as smart as I thought he was, or he's lying. I don't know which one it is, but I can't see a third option because he actually doesn't check his sources. It seems like he just accepts the conclusions of whoever's content he's following, and he just doesn't check what the sources actually say. Again, and this is something that he does in live debates, where you can't actually, like, he drops stats and studies, and in live debate, you don't know if the stats are correct, you don't know if the studies are correct, and often when you actually go check after, you're like, okay, it was incorrect, or his interpretation of the study was completely different, or sometimes the opposite of what the study are saying. But you can't check these live on a debate. But given that I think I'm going to go over a lot of them, hopefully. And what people should do, I think, if anybody else ever debates him, if he keeps dropping data, they should say, every time somebody checks after the debate whether the data that you're referring to is accurate, it was wrong, right? It was often, not every, I shouldn't be absolute. Again, see, I'm catching myself making absolutist statement. Not every time, a lot of times, okay? And I can't during this live debate, I can go and check your data live on air, but excuse me if I'm being skeptical, given your history of how you treat studies and data. And I'm going to do this here with you guys as well. And you guys could be critical of me if I make any mistakes or if you think I'm being wrong, okay? Please do that. With that out of the way, let's get started, all right? Let me actually see in the live chat if you guys are saying anything that I need to be mindful of. Well, you guys know to tag Atheist Republic. Guys, I'm not going to be able to check everything in the live chat. I don't know how some people, Abdullah Samir, for example, I don't know how this person's minds operate. He seems to be listening to his guests. I know he's listening to this guest because of the things he says after they're saying while reading the live chat at the same time. I think he can do that because he's a programmer or something, but I can't do that. Okay, I don't have that capability. So you guys need to, if something is very important for me to read, you guys better tag Atheist Republic. Okay, and even then, I can't guarantee you that I'm going to be my mind is very focused on the thing that I'm doing, so I don't know. Okay. Somebody's comparing, Bish Matan to Danny Haqiqatjou to Ben Shapiro. Okay, guys, make sure if it's something that I need to read, it's actually something that I need to read if you're tagging me, okay? Okay, cool. Or if it's a question, or if you're calling me out on something, or if you're correcting me on something, okay? Those are the best comments, right? Anyways, let me know. I'm going to play this. Let me know if you have... Oh, one thing I have to criticize Daniel Haqiqatjou. Again, I'm going to be... I will do this to Harry Sultan as well if he gets personal and stuff, because he did get personal and I think it was not cool. But before I start criticizing Harry Sultan for getting personal, I must say that Daniel Haqiqatjou's thumbnail of this debate was so embarrassing. Let me actually show it to you guys. This is such a cheap tactic. Guys, are you guys here to discuss? It just makes you look so pathetic when you, hold on, let me show you guys. Look at this. Look at this thumbnail. Can you see it? Look at the way he makes himself look, and look at the face that he picked for Harry Sultan. What the hell is that? This is it's so lame. Really, this is your tactic? He went and found the worst possible picture of Harry Sultan for his thumbnail. I don't know what he's doing there. It seems like he's having an orgasm or something. I don't know. But this is just makes you look so lame and pathetic. What is this? Anyways, just had to put that out there. Okay. Yeah, so Puya saying, is this kindergarten? Yeah, I'm gonna get Harry Sultan. I'm gonna go pick a picture of him where he looks bad. Really? You think you're making him look bad? You're making yourself look bad. I mean, Harry Sultan is way ahead of you in the looks department. Daniel. So like, I don't think that's where you want to go. Anyways. Yeah, random guy is saying Harris's strategy was definitely very good, but his opening was really disappointing. That's what I'm going to say as well. His opening was not at all good, but he saved it. He saved it. He saved it at the end, to so much so that I would say that he did better than I would have. Okay, but let's do it. Let's go.
Hey everybody, this morning we are debating Sharia law versus human rights, and we are starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Modern Day Debate. Thrilled to
You guys can hear this, right?
have you here, and we are going to start with Harris's opening statement. Thanks for being with us, Harris. The floor is all yours.
Well, thank you very much. I just want to start by saying that every other conversation I've had with my adversaries, I've had it with the intention of trying to find a common ground, try to find the best outcome, try to understand each other's positions. But pardon me for my skepticism, but I'm certain that this debate is not going to go that way, because to say the very least,
like, look here. Okay, Harris, okay, I love you, and I'm going to give you compliments, right? But he's opening, the first thing he says is, first of all, his certainty. He like, even if you in your own mind, you're certain that this conversation is not going to go in a positive way, and you guys are going to have some issues with each other, think about what the audience is going to think about. Like, a lot of people are not going to know who you are or who Daniel is, and they're going to come to this channel, Modern Day Debates, and they're going to be like, oh, great, a debate between an ex-Muslim and a Muslim. And the first thing they hear from the ex-Muslim side is that I am sure that Daniel is a horrible person, and that's why this debate is not going to go very well, right? And like, okay, like, you seem like a dick.
My opponent is not interested in objectives I just mentioned. He's more interested in scoring points, beating his chest, and basically performing to his audience.
Like, people are not going to know the history you two have with each other. It's like, oh, wow, this ex-Muslim side is just like, from the very beginning, is making assumptions about his opponent, and without a debate, declaring himself a winner and declaring the other side as a person who's just going to try to score points and beat his chest. Like, this is not like, you want to, I mean, part of actually convincing people is going to be showing that, like, as an ex-Muslim, you are going to be charitable, you're going to be nice, you're going to be respectful, you're going to assume the best of intentions from your opponent. You know, that's what you like. You want to win hearts and minds of people. This is not just about logical debates. This is not just about winning people over with, facts. And, you also want to be like, hey, how a lot of people, Muslims who might be skeptical about Islam, they have all these assumptions about ex-Muslims being evil, right? So maybe they don't want to be ex-Muslim because they think like, oh, ex-Muslims are horrible, ex-Muslims are like rude, ex-Muslims are not very nice, right? And you want to show that, no, I can be like, ex-Muslims are nice, ex-Muslims could be friendly, ex-Muslims could be charitable, ex-Muslims can be nice to Muslims, they can be accepting of Muslims, they could be friends with Muslims, they could accept them as part of, you want to demonstrate that. You want to show like, hey, look, on the ex-Muslim side, we have a nice guy, and on the Muslim side, you might have a nice guy, you might, like, this is you also portraying what is possible to be as an ex-Muslim. So it just seems like very personal. Like, are you guys here to argue like over like have a debate or a logical debate over whose value system is right, or are you just going to start right after the bat with personally attacking your opponent? It's just such a bad look, I think. Vikram is saying, I agreed. I think that Harris should have provoked Daniel into reacting angrily first, because before insulting him, instead of insulting right away. No, I don't think you should have provoked Daniel to reacting angrily. I think actually, if you could show that, okay, so if you're the nice person, okay, the other person could be, the Muslim side could be either nice or not nice, okay? If the Muslim side is not nice, then people are like, oh, wow, okay, the Muslim was being a dick and the ex-Muslim wasn't. Again, I don't want people to come up with the conclusion that, okay, therefore Muslims are horrible people. No, this is anecdotal. And even if the ex-Muslim side is being nice and being friendly, people shouldn't come up with the conclusions that therefore ex-Muslims are nice. No, the conclusion, the logical conclusion from that is that it's possible for ex-Muslims to be nice. You can't just assume that they're all dicks, okay? So I don't want people to use anecdotal evidence to come up with general conclusions, right? And also, and if the alternative was that the ex-Muslim side was nice and the Muslim side was very nice and it was just a friendly disagreement, passionate, very passionate, but yet friendly disagreement, and you know, even with our disagreements, we could be friends with each other, that would also be a good outcome for us, because that shows like, hey, we could disagree and still get along, right? So either way, it would have been good. Like, you don't have to actually provoke the other person to make them look bad. If they were nice to you and you're nice to them, that's also a good outcome. Anyways. Okay, guys, like, look, you're tagging me and you're talking about something that has nothing to do with the debate. I'm going to block you if you do that again, okay? Cillian, I will block you again because I'm really trying to keep my focus on the debate and on you at the same time, and you're tagging me about something that is completely irrelevant.
Audience. Now, this is something I have never taken part in, so it's going to be good experience for myself as well. I've always had an open mind, and the fact that I no longer believe in a religion or a worldview that I was indoctrinated with is the evidence of my open-mindedness and of people like me. However, some people stay in the same worldview or a frame of mind they were born into. This is not just terribly sad, but it also shows this closed-mindedness of people like Daniel Haqiqatjou.
That is so wrong, guys. I'm going to get to where Harris actually gets to the good parts, where he actually does better than I will. I will compliment him. But here he's so wrong. Then he's like, it's so sad about people like Daniel Haqiqatjou that they don't change their mind. Daniel used to be a Shia. He's now a Sunni. He has changed his opinions. Like, what are you talking about? Don't just assume that about people. And also, not every change of opinion is a good thing, okay? Like, oh, they don't ever change their mind. Like, yeah, so you're wrong. You're like, oh, this is so sad about people like Daniel who don't change their mind. Well, he has. His entire world philosophy has changed. In fact, he used to believe in modernity and, all these things, and he doesn't. So I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm sorry to say this in advance if this debate gets rough and out of hand, because it's very hard to respect my opponent.
Such bad faith. It's very, right from the get-go, it's very hard to respect my opponent. Harris, even if that is true because of previous experiences that you had with Daniel, this is the first time a lot of the people in the audience are going to be introduced. They have no idea yet what your history is, okay? And they're just going to judge you. They just see that right off the beginning, you just started with personal attacks. Not a good strategy.
As he pretends to be a serious-minded objectivist, but his antics show the exact opposite. Now, let me use this opportunity to welcome any serious Islamic apologist, and I will give you full respect, as I've done it in the past with people like Mufti Uthman Farooq, Uthman Badr, Mufti Abu Layth, and people like massive superstars like Hamza Ali Abbasi, ex-Pakistani movie star, now has become a full-on Dai. As I said, it's very...
I think what I understand what Harris, I think what he's trying to do, and I think the intention was good, but it could have been done in a better way, okay? I think what he's trying to demonstrate is that what Daniel's views on Islam are, what his interpretation of Islam are, and the fact that Harris is going to be so fundamentally against what values of Daniel, it doesn't mean that Harris doesn't respect other Muslims, and that even if this conversation is not going to be friendly, it doesn't mean that Harris is not capable of having friendly conversations with other Muslims, or that, and he also is, that's what he's trying to say. Like, he's like, not all the other Muslims are not like Daniel Haqiqatjou. Like, other Muslims don't support slavery. Like, maybe Islam does, but most Muslims wouldn't support child marriage, slavery, violence, or wife beating, right? And these are not the values of many other Muslims out there, even though it is in their scripture. Will they ignore it, right? And Harris, is trying to say like, okay, this is just Daniel, guys. Like other Muslims are not like this, right? Or Daniel and some and his ilk. But I think he could have done that in a much better way without this amount of certainty and this amount of hostility. He could have said, I think what I would have done if I had the same intention, I would have started by saying, guys, based on what I've seen from Daniel, and this could be a wrong assumption, and I'm happy to be proven otherwise, but a lot of the things that Daniel says here, I'm going to reject and demonstrate why they're false, or maybe like counter, but I just want you to understand that I am aware that Daniel doesn't necessarily represent all Muslims, and there are a lot of Muslims that think different from Daniel. So I'm not under this assumption that if I am rejecting Daniel's value system, that I have demonstrated why all Muslims are wrong about their value system. Like, I'm aware of that, right? But you could do that. You could say that without this personal attack on Daniel.
Very difficult to respect some.
Okay, Sultan, you're talking about something that is going to happen later. So I appreciate that now your comments are actually about the debates, but let's wait till we get there, okay? Let's talk about what's happening right now.
Like Haqiqatjou, not because of his outrageous beliefs, because more or less most of these guys share some of these views anyway, or because of his open incitement to murder and torture and enslavement of people, but because of his antics, even outside of this discourse, such as making fun of people's mental health, resorting to little childish antics as though it's a pre-boxing show or something, being more interested.
See, like, the topic of debate is not Daniel. The topic of debate is Sharia versus human rights, right? Like, your opening is now a judgment on whether Daniel had, like, your opening of this important debate is how good of a person or how horrible of a person Daniel is, and touching upon events that people have no idea and haven't witnessed. Like, what does this got to do? Like, this is not the debate is not is Daniel a good person? Like, what is this? I don't get it.
Claiming victory rather than having a meaningful discussion.
I mean, Daniel could be a horrible person with good arguments about Sharia, and he could be a great person, very like kind, loving person with horrible arguments for Sharia, right? Like, it doesn't really matter how good or bad of a person Daniel is. It's like we're trying to judge his arguments. That's what we're here for, right? I mean, even if you want to touch upon his record of being a bad person, really, does that belong in the opening?
Haqiqatjou openly says he doesn't need validation from Westerners or non-Muslims to respect the Islamic values or practices. Then the question arises, what is he doing here? If we assume that his statement is...
Like, okay, Music Guy is saying there's probably more to it than we know, so it's personal to Harry Sultan. Yes, but this should not have been the place to bring that up. Again, even if that is true, the purpose of this debate is to demonstrate why Sharia is wrong to a lot of people that might even not know much about Islam, right? Like, do you want to bring like your experience and personal issues that you have with Daniel? I mean, even if you want to at some point like settle that and bring that up, like, is that how you want to open it? Like, I don't know. Like, I just think like people who are clicking on this to see why Sharia is good or bad, they're like, I don't know what you guys' personal issues are. I don't know why that's the subject of discussion. Like, you just seem to want to personally attack this person right now. Yeah, Julia is saying he should have started by attacking the message, not the messenger. Right. Like, I think he should have just been like giving it, like, I think the opening would have been a great opportunity for Harris to just give a list of all the values that Islam promotes, then we have an issue with. That would immediately put Daniel on a defense, because Daniel's opening is going to be an attack on modernity, which was his attempt to put Harris on the defense mode. And I think that's a good strategy. Harris being the first person to go had this opportunity to frame, like put the audience in the frame of mind. Oh, like, oh yeah, let's see what Daniel says. Like, he could have just quickly give you a bullet point of 20 different things in Islam that are not ideal and that Daniel needs to have an excuse for, right? Like, he could have done that. Like, that would have been a great framing of the audience's mind, I think. Harris was first. Harris went first.
Is true and honest, then he is obviously here to reaffirm the belief of young Muslims who are losing their faith. Why? Because these young Muslims are fast becoming ex-Muslims. People
see now Harris is switching to pointing out how many Muslims are leaving Islam and how much the ex-Muslim community is growing, right? Which, I mean, is true, but what does that got? I mean, he's like, oh, these people are here so desperate to defend Islam because they know that they're losing and so many people are leaving Islam. Okay. And yeah. And like, what does that got to do with whether his arguments are correct or not? Like, you just said that he's here to just like beat his chest. But now you're doing the chest beating. You're like, I don't know who's right or wrong. We're winning. Like, we're on the winning side. Like, people are leaving Islam. I'm like, okay, but what is that? You know, you're just like wanting to claim victory as if, like, you know what, this debate doesn't even matter because we're already, like, whatever happens in this debate, we're winning anyways, and people are leaving Islam in masses. And so just letting you know that this debate, whether I come off on top or not, just know that we're winning anyway. So you're losing and we're winning. Like that's how I'm not saying that's what he's saying, but that's what it comes across as. I don't think the number of people who are leaving Islam right now is relevant to whether Sharia is good or human rights are good.
People like Haqiqatjou are the last hope of these confused young Muslims who are struggling to make sense out of the barbaric and outdated teachings of Islam. Sharia being one of the most troublesome, which has clearly no place in the 21st century. As progress hits the Muslim countries, the birth rates go down, and as a result, the growth of Islam is likely to slow down by 2060. Pew survey shows Muslims produce 2.9 children per woman. At the moment, however, it is likely to...
Yeah, so basically the thing he's addressing, which is interesting because the ex-Muslims have the deconversion on their side. Like, that's ex-Muslims population is growing because a lot of people are leaving Islam. But what Muslims have on their side is making babies on a much higher scale than atheists or ex-Muslims are, right? So Muslim countries' birth rates are much higher than non-Islamic countries. So that's their main source of maintaining their numbers, right? However, Islamic countries, given they're going to keep growing and growing economically, and as they develop more, they're going to get hit with higher birth rates, lower birth rates at some point. So they can't rely on that forever. So that's why it doesn't look good. Like, a lot of the predictions of where Islam is going to be at some point really depends on what the birth rates are going to be. And again, if these countries develop economically much faster, the birth rates are going to naturally drop, right? So
to reduce, as let me quote Pew, the declining growth rate is due primarily to falling fertility rates in many Muslim majority countries. It said, noting the birth rate is falling as more Muslim women are educated, living standards rise, and rural people move to cities. I will put this opening statement up on my website, and the link will be given for your reference. I, on the other hand, have a totally different take. I want to reach out to Muslim youth. I do care what Muslims think of us. My whole activism doesn't rely on helping young secularists and atheists to hold on to the rope of atheistic faith. No, because once you become an atheist, you become a free thinker. You don't need Dawkins or Hitchens or me.
Don't make absolute statements about all atheists. Like, maybe like make your language. You're more likely to be free thinker. You're more likely to be someone who questions their view. But you don't make statements like that. Once you're an atheist, you're going to be a free thinker. Like, not necessarily. Like, we know a lot of atheists that seem to believe in every single conspiracy theory under the sun. So again, be careful. Don't make absolute statements like that. Use the words like more likely and stuff like that. Just to be careful, right? By the way, guys, for people who are here, we're gonna do this. I'm going to, review more of Daniel Haqiqatjou's future videos. I think I'm going to do every single one of them going forward. So every video that Daniel Haqiqatjou makes, I'm going to review it here. Okay, so if you're interested in, reviews of Islamic videos, I'm going to subscribe right now. So because there's a lot more of this coming. Okay, and this debate, by the way, there's very unlikely that we're going to be able to finish this debate in one session. So I don't know how many parts we're going to have. We're going to probably have part 4 and 5 at some point. So if you want to see me reviewing this entire debate, so make sure you subscribe to see that, and hit the bell notification, because subscribing is not enough to be able to see when we're going live. You actually need the bell thingy. Hit the bell thingy. Okay. Anyways, let's go.
You can think for yourself, and this is why I reach out to these young Muslims. I'm trying to educate them about the dangers of Sharia, the barbarity, and at the same time making them realize the value of human rights. Because Sharia is a totalitarian ideology, much like Chinese Communist Party or Kim Jong-un's Democratic Republic of North Korea. Acknowledging and respecting human rights will end up respecting you, your life, and that of your loved ones. It is by long shot the best deal you can have. Now, after this debate, Haqiqatjou and his fanboys are likely to claim victory, as they always do, because
it's likely, but you don't need to. You don't need to make predictions like this, because again, you're going to come off as bad faith and just assuming the outcome before it happens. It's just not a good look to the audience, I think.
If they don't do it, they feel that their faith is irrational, which obviously it is, and that is the reason why they have to claim victory. On the other hand, atheists, people supposedly on my side, will also nitpick some of my arguments and responses. Why?
Hey, we're doing here right now. We're nitpicking everything you're saying. By the way, guys, if I criticize Harris, like, I still love Harris and I love what he does, okay? But that doesn't mean I'm going to not criticize him. I'm sure he appreciates that.
Why? Because atheists are self-critical. That is the beauty of it. So
again, okay, in the spirit of being self-critical, I'm going to be critical of your statement of saying atheists are self-critical. That's an absolute statement, okay? Absolute statement. You can't say atheists are self-critical. There are so many atheists that aren't. Just say like atheists are more likely, at least say atheists are more likely to be self-critical. That would be true. But it's funny because it's so meta, because he's saying atheists are self-critical, and I'm being critical of that statement, which kind of proves his point somewhat. It would have proved his point somewhat. It doesn't actually. That would be anecdotal. No, it doesn't prove his point. But what was I saying? Again, don't make absolute statements. It's so much easier to make these claims if you say they're more likely, more often, stuff like that. Atheists are self-critical. No, all of them? Obviously not.
So I don't judge the.
Oh, hey, San Miguel. Nevaga saying, I think the condescending language makes his side look bad. I mean, it shouldn't, because none of us represent the entire community, obviously. But yeah, unfortunately, that's how people come up with conclusions of.
Winners or losers by popular opinions of others, because in these cases, everyone vouches for their own guy, except atheists, of course. And I don't want them to change. The winner is determined by how many people are convinced by whose worldview. Not
really. The winner is decided based on who makes the most sense, who makes the most logical sense. I guess that's what yeah.
Tomorrow I start seeing comments that I was an atheist and Haqiqatjou gave some mind-boggling answers in defense of amputations, sex slavery, stoning, torture, beheading, etc. And in light of these amazing arguments from Haqiqatjou, I have now decided to leave my debauchery-riddled atheism aside and become a Muslim. Now that I've said it, I certainly expect some fake atheists claiming just that, but we all know that's never going to happen.
Okay, this is amazing. So he just claimed victory beforehand. Whatever happens, Harris claims victory. He's like, the only way for me, for Daniel's side to win is for people to come and claim that I used to be ex-Muslim or atheist, and because of watching this debate, I have now converted to Islam. And he says like, and he's like, oh, by the way, now that I have said this, any statement that you see like that is going to be fake because I said it. So some people might fake it. So there is no way. So, and we all know that that's not true anyways. So so he is winner by default even before the debate. It's like, oh, there's like, we already know, like there's no, based on all metrics, we can already predetermine that I'm going to be the winner of this debate. And he says that while starting by saying Daniel is here to just score points. I mean, you're seeming like you're the one who's trying to score points. And chest beating, I mean, you already have declared yourself the winner before the debate has even started, and you're saying Daniel is here to do chest beating. Like, anyways.
On the other hand, I still get comments from people who watched my debate with Uthman Badr nearly 3 years ago in a Sydney university, or with Hamza Ali Abbasi, or with Uthman.
Guys, don't worry, we're gonna get to Harris's good parts as well, which he did very well. But it's gonna take a while before we get there because his first two openings I did not like.
Quite recently, and people send me messages and say they were Muslims, and now.
Okay, I have to highlight this. NSDF in the live chat is saying Armin Navabi is Iranian and Daniel is Iranian. Now we understand why he's defending him. You got me, man. You got me. This was the only thing that matters to me. Nawab is saying, Armin, you may feel to return to Islam after listening to Daniel. Everything is possible. We'll see. If I see any good arguments for why Islam is true, I'm ready to accept Islam. I hope I'm objective enough to be able to see a good argument for Islam and accept Islam.
Left Islam,
guys. If I think I'm being, unless like I'm unaware of my own inner thoughts. I think I would be very eager. I would have no reservations in converting to Islam if one day somebody comes and shows me like, oh, this is why Islam is true and this is why Islam is good, and I actually objectively look at it like, holy crap, they're right. I would be like going live without any notice or anything. I would be coming and telling of like, I don't think I am being biased. Again, it's impossible to be completely objective. But I would come here live. I would be like telling you guys, I would change the name of Atheist Republic to the former Atheist, now Islamic Republic. I would do that. I would definitely do that. I would be like, yeah, but again, I think I'm being honest, unless I am somehow being dishonest to myself, I'm not aware of it, okay?
I expect more messages like those for many more years to come. Not necessarily because of me, but because of being exposed to these conversations that they were deprived of. But it was the start of a journey. They looked it up, they listened to other people, they investigated their own faith, and they flipped. Because the only thing that keeps people in their circle of faith is childhood indoctrination and the consequent ignorance, which we can both say is not the case with Haqiqatjou, or some sort of an emotional trauma, which is most likely the case with Haqiqatjou.
Oh my God, this is horrible. Okay, so now he's psychologically analyzing Daniel Haqiqatjou, and he's bringing his personal drama, which might be something that he would like to keep private, in the middle of the debate. Like, that is not a good look. That's not a good move. Like, hey, let me tell you, everybody, Daniel has had a personal traumatic experience. That might be why he's a horrible person and has horrible views. And I'm not an psychological expert, and even if I was, there's no way for anybody to be able to evaluate what somebody's suffering from online. Like, I haven't had access. Even if I was an expert, I would probably need access to the patient for me to be able to even to come up with analysis like this. I mean, this is not a good look. This is honestly not a good look. Hold up. This is funny. Irina is saying, you already told us before that you were friends with Daniel Haqiqatjou, so nothing about you surprises us anymore. Okay, you're an idiot, Irina. I'm actually friends with Harris. I'm not friends with Daniel. I said we need to be friendly to Muslims. I didn't say I'm a friend. Daniel Haqiqatjou doesn't like me. Okay? I tried to be friendly with him on Twitter, and he was like, he didn't take it very well. I mean, he was friendly in person, but then online, I think when there's an audience, he's just very unfriendly with me for some reason, even though I really tried to be friendly with him online as well. But being friendly with somebody, that doesn't mean they're your friend. Harris is my friend. Damn it. You guys are stupid. Some of you are stupid. Just like, yeah, so now he's now bringing so Daniel's personal life tragedy, he's now making it a subject of discussion on a debate that is supposed to be about Sharia versus human rights. I'm making now, like, his opening is about Daniel's personal traumatic experience with his family. Why is this in the topic? Why is this the topic of discussion? Why are you bringing that up?
I wasn't aware of Haqiqatjou's actual story, which I was made aware of a couple of days ago. And I know we should talk about it out of respect for a fellow human being who was wronged by a society she was living in. But I have always believed people who are so dogmatic about their worldview, least to say as obviously false as Islam, there must be some sort of an emotional trauma. I assume it would.
There must be obviously an emotional trauma. Not always. What are you talking about, Harris? Do you have a study that shows that? Is this your own personal belief? Do you have any evidence? Do you have any data? And you're saying always is, you know how easy it is to find examples of that is not true? Why are you making such absolute statements?
Would be the case of experiencing racism in white America, as a lot of children of immigrants suffer from in their schools. As a result, they develop identity crisis, and that's what I assumed would be the case with Haqiqatjou. But after learning about his story, I had this sudden feeling of sadness and that heart-sinking feeling. But at the same time, it made me wonder, how could someone who would have gone through so much, whose family would have gone through so much, yet he becomes sadistic, almost,
oh my God,
loses all human compassion.
He's saying Daniel is sadistic and has lost all human compassion. Oh my God. Oh my God. Why would you say that? Why is he sadistic? Why does he have no human compassion? Is it possible for Daniel to have no human compassion? It's almost impossible for Daniel to have zero human compassion. What are you talking about?
In the process, and wishes the same kind of injury upon others, like wishing death for apostates, homosexuals, adulterers. Someone who would have gone through
Okay, guys, look at me, okay? If Islam was true, and if there was an Allah, and if there was an afterlife, if all those premises were true, then the compassionate thing to do would be to advocate for the things that Daniel is advocating. Okay? I mean, we're talking about, like, the problem that we have as utilitarians, right? The problem that we have with religious outlook of the world is that the calculation of what's beneficial to humans is completely off, is completely wrong, given that we're supposed to be living mostly in the afterlife rather than this life, right? So you have to, any calculation of what's the best thing for any human is going to be completely wrong, because dunya, which means this life, matters very little compared to akhirat, which means the afterlife. right? But if there was an Akhirat, and if there was an Allah, and if the purpose of creating you was to worship him and to follow his rules, then the best thing for every human would be to follow his rules and to also make sure that they have a good place in the afterlife. And if you were a compassionate human being, you would be advocating for everybody to follow those rules. That would be the compassionate thing to do. The problem is that none of that is true. That there is no Allah and there is no afterlife. Okay, so don't go around and be like, if you're advocating for these things, you have no compassion. You might actually be advocating for these things because you have compassion. Anyways. I mean, I'm not saying necessarily. You might be a sadist. Maybe you are a sadist that hates other human beings and you're just using Islam as an excuse. I'm just saying that's not necessarily the case. It could be, it could be not. You probably have examples of both. Oh my God, Kian, I'm going to freaking ban you if you're speaking Persian here and I'm talking about things that has nothing to do with this live chat and tagging me at the same time. God damn it. Vikram is saying maybe Harris should have pointed out the evil things Daniel Haqiqatjou has done, then call him those names. No, because the topic of discussion is not how bad Daniel, how good or bad Daniel is. This should have never been made personal.
Personal tragedy, who would have seen his family members cry for countless amount of hours, who would have experienced depression, sadness, anxiety, yet he makes fun of other people's anxiety or their depression or their suffering. What could turn a man's heart into a stone? This reminds me of a story when Stalin's first wife, Kato Swanidze, died. At her funeral, Stalin said, "This creature softened my heart of stone. She died."
He's now comparing Daniel to Stalin. Amazing. Amazing start.
"And with her died my last."
He's just coming up with a psychological analysis of Daniel. Like, not even experts in psychology are so bold in making statements like this. And even when they do, they're often criticized by other psychological experts. Like, you can't just do that online over, like, just, yeah. And even the ones who are bold enough to make such statements about just observing someone's behavior without them being their patient, they often say, like, they are likely, maybe, I see signs of this kind of behavior. They don't just, like, make absolute statements like, oh, I have figured out, I have, based on Daniel's behavior, I have analyzed him psychologically, and this is the situation, and this is why he's saying the things he's saying. You can't do that. You can't make these assumptions. You can't make assumptions about people's intentions and why they do the things they do. Maybe you could say likely, or maybe you could say, I think it might be this, but I'm not sure. Like, be more skeptical about your claims.
Warm feelings for humanity. So sometimes a personal tragedy can create monsters, and they become source of immense suffering for all those unfortunate enough to be living around them.
Wait, great. We're 7 minutes in, and he has called everything. Has, like, how many personal attacks on Daniel has he done in the first 7 minutes? He's now calling him a monster.
The reason why other Muslim scholars don't openly adhere or preach the very values that Haqiqatjou so proudly and boastfully propagates is because they might be Muslims. They might revere Prophet Muhammad, but they are not sages or psychopaths.
Okay, guys, I know it's important to make the point that not all Muslims have the views of Daniel. It's important to make that point, okay? I appreciate Harris trying to make that point. Like, hey, guys, like, don't judge all Muslims based on what Daniel is saying. That's a good point to make. But you could do that without calling Daniel a sadist, all right? Many people have Daniel's views not because they're sadists, but because they genuinely think that's the best thing for humanity. Some of them might be sadists. I don't know. Some of them may have these views because they enjoy seeing other people suffer. But some of them have these views because they genuinely think this is a good thing for humanity.
Totally devoid of compassion and mercy. But that is not the case with Haqiqatjou. He had to turn off his compassion switch in order to accept Sharia in its entirety. No sane person can advocate and propagate Sharia. We have seen videos of ISIS even seen videos of ISIS soldiers throwing homosexuals off the rooftops, which Haqiqatjou promotes, crying because they probably hadn't turned off their compassion switch as their leader Baghdadi had. Now just imagine for a moment, you find out tomorrow that I've been captured by the Taliban and they've executed me. A lot of Muslims, upon hearing this news, not even the sadist ones, the normal ones, might say, he was a dick anyway, he deserved it. But now imagine they filmed it. I can guarantee some Muslims will be troubled by that, and they will start making excuses like, maybe he should have been given a chance to repent, or maybe we should leave these matters to Allah, or they would try to make some other types of excuses. Why? Because they haven't turned off their compassion switch as Haqiqatjou has. Now imagine they actually film torturing me and then slicing my throat while I'm trembling as the blood slowly gushes out of my throat like a slaughtered cow. I still like to believe majority of Muslims will not be happy. This is not wishful thinking on my part. In fact, it is the only reason why ISIS could not get popularity amongst Muslims, amongst the very Muslims who say, we want Sharia, like most followers of Haqiqatjou. But why?
So the implication is that Daniel is so heartless and so void of human compassion that, unlike the vast majority of Muslims, he wouldn't even be bothered by this Harris, dying or something like that. First of all, we don't know that. Maybe he's one of those Muslims who would advocate for it, but then if he sees the site, he would be like bothered by it. We don't know that. Like maybe it's not. I don't know. But you're making this entire point that you're coming up with a hypothetical story that is trying to trigger people emotionally. But I mean, even if it's but to make what point? To make the point, like we're still on this we're still on this, attempt to show people that Daniel is a bad person. Like this entire story, this entire hypothetical situation, this emotional triggering of people to, I mean, at least if it was in the direction of showing how bad Sharia is, which is the topic of this debate, I would okay, fine. But it's just to make the point that Daniel is a bad person. All this effort just to say that Daniel is a bad person. What does this got to do with the topic of the debate? Daniel could be a bad person, but make good points for Sharia.
Because most humans haven't or can't turn off their compassion switch as Haqiqatjou has. Once we see suffering, we have this natural reaction of disgust and outpouring of compassion. Now, in all the three mentioned scenarios, I could expect a tweet from, actually, he lost his Twitter account for propagating.
Shinobu is saying Daniel is basically milking the backlash against postmodernism, though in the West, and selling it as Sharia. Exactly. That's a very good point, and we will get to that. This is his. Yeah, we'll get that. We'll get to that. That's a very good observation, but we're not there yet, guys. If you're tagging me, try to keep it about what we are, the topic at hand, okay? Like this guy. Nawab is saying, I agree with Harris's point. Daniel Haqiqatjou clearly meant to follow and apply all Sharia law provisions, including child marriages and execution. This kind of thought's very dangerous. I mean, yeah, of course, but I didn't say that these who's saying that these are not dangerous? You're missing the point, Nawab. My point is that he is first of all, even if they're dangerous, the intention could be because you're a sadist, or the intention could be that you think that this is the best thing for humanity. Neither of which means that these are good for humanity. Obviously, these are dangerous views and horrible for humanity. That's not what I'm saying. Of course, we all agree on that here, okay? The point is, the reason might not necessarily be sadism. The reason might be you genuinely think this is good for humanity. And also, what's the point of highlighting how bad of a person Daniel is when the topic should be focused on how bad Sharia is? I just think you guys don't listen.
The same brutal and sadistic punishment. But anyway, he would find a way, maybe on Facebook, to express his happiness by.
Adam is saying, but Armin, you are so slow. We have barely covered the intro. That's the point of this live stream, guys. I'm going to be very slow. This is why this is going to be multiple parts. This is going to take on forever, because If you actually want to watch the debate and only the debate, well, the debate is there. You could go watch the debate. There's so many points that were made in this live stream that I want to analyze every single one of them. I think it's valuable. I think it's valuable for me, especially answering Daniel. That's going to take a long time. But Daniel starts speaking. He has made a lot of longer claims that I want to respond to. And that's going to take even longer, right? So you're in for a very long ride. This is going to part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. Okay, so this is going to be slow. If you're actually interested in just watching the debate without my analysis, go watch that debate. But that's the point of this live stream. It's going to take a while.
Saying something like, Murtad has finally met his well-deserved end, laughing emojis, ha, ha, ha. Why? Because he has become a sadist and there's no compassion left in him. I want to ask the Muslims who are watching this, is this the kind of society you want to live in that is brutal, not only to the obvious murderers or rapists, we can put that aside for a moment, but those considered by Sharia as criminals who have no victims, like homosexuals, apostates, or adulterers? Is this who you want to be?
So this is a good point to make. Like, but you could do that without saying Daniel is a horrible human being without compassion and a sadist. You should have said, like, this is what Sharia stands for. This is what Sharia teaches according to your own sources. Then you could have said, like, is this what you want to represent? Is this what you want to support? This is not based on what Daniel is saying or what other Muslims are saying. This is in your own books. This is in the Quran. This is in the Hadith. This is in the Tafsir. Okay, this is the most common understanding of all the interpretations of all the Hadith and the Quran based on your own scholars, Arabic speaking and non-Arabic speaking. The vast majority of them agree with this interpretation, and the ones that don't are just the modern ones who are just trying to adapt to modernity. Okay? Given that how undeniable it is that this is what Sharia represents, do you want to defend that? You know, you don't have to say this is what Daniel represents. Do you want to agree with Daniel? The argument should be this is what Sharia represents. Do you want to agree with Sharia? That's what he should have been said. That's what I can't speak. That's what he should have said, in my opinion.
If the answer is yes, then it is a sad case for you. If the answer is no, or you try to listen to people like Haqiqatjou to rationalize this barbarity for you by saying things like, oh, for the collective good, we have to punish apostates and homosexuals or whatever, then it...
Yeah, Vikram is saying Harris is implying that Daniel Haqiqatjou is bad, therefore Sharia is bad. This doesn't follow. Yeah, exactly, Vikram. I mean, even if he didn't make, and if he's not saying that, then why bring it up?
It means something is bothering you. It means you still have your humanity, compassion, altruism intact. In fact, I was told recently Muhammad Hijab went out of his way to find a no execution way out for apostates. He even made up an explanation for it. Why? Because I realized maybe even he has some compassion left in him. Unfortunately,
we're still in the bandwagon of Daniel bad. Daniel bad, Daniel bad. He's now saying even Muhammad Hijab is better than Daniel. Even he has compassion, but Daniel has no compassion. Like, we're still in this whole argument that Daniel is bad. Okay.
Fortunately, same can't be said about people like Haqiqatjou or Ali Dawa, who's proud of executing apostates. This is why Sharia should be condemned. Sharia, in its literal application, demands you to turn off your compassion, altruism, and humanity. This brutal system is not just against you or me or some sort of an ideological standpoint, but it is anti-nature. Nature, in the form of evolution, has put feelings like altruism and compassion in us. And Sharia can be anything.
Wait, I missed that. Was that an appeal to nature fallacy? I kind of tuned out a little bit. Hold on. Was that an appeal to nature fallacy right there?
He even made up an explanation for it. Why? Because I realized maybe even he has some compassion left in him. Unfortunately, same can't be said about people like Haqiqatjou or Ali Dawa, who's proud of executing apostates. This is why Sharia should be condemned. Sharia, in its literal application, demands you to turn off your compassion, altruism, and humanity. This brutal system is not just against you or me or some sort of an ideological standpoint, but it is anti-nature. Nature in the form of evolution has put feelings like altruism and compassion in us. And Sharia can be anything but compassionate.
Okay, I don't buy that argument. I mean, it is true, but human rights and the human rights that we advocate for is also sometimes against nature, because it's better than nature, right? So, I mean, for example, like the justice system, like if you want to appeal to nature as a way to figure out what's moral and what's not moral, we are very prone to revenge, and when it comes to punishing people, it's a lot. If we just appeal to our natural senses, we wouldn't be advocating as much as we should be for due process, for the defense to be able to, like, there are a lot of values that we advocate for when it comes to human rights that contradict the natural feelings that we have on what should be right, because the feelings that nature have given us when it comes to altruism or cooperation or sympathy, all of that is good, and without it we wouldn't even survive. But then they are not ideal for a modern world. Like, they don't serve us as well. Like, they're flawed. That's why the systems that we create, when it comes to the moral standards that we create, is better than what nature has offered us. Like, one of the most standard examples we have is, like, if you see like a little child drowning in front of you, you're going to have more sympathy for that and try to stop it than if I told you 1,000 children are drowning right now in, I don't know, somewhere else in another country far away. Obviously, we're not, our brains have not been evolved in a way that is capable of having the same 1,000 times more sympathy for children dying, in another country, as much as we will have for one person right in front of our eyes. So obviously, for the modern world, the ethical systems that we come up with is not just based on our emotional and natural feelings. So you could say that human rights, if you're saying Sharia doesn't comply with nature, you could argue, well, human rights doesn't either, and that's a good thing, because we could do better than just our nature, right? Yeah.
Or altruistic. I feel sad about the terrible story of the young woman, and my last couple of days were actually spent wondering, how much should I talk about this? Should I bring it up without hurting anyone? And I want to say my heart goes out to Haqiqatjou's family, and I don't blame them for being bitter with this so-called Western justice system. I have often said that I am against capital punishment, but if something like this had happened to me or my loved one, I would be going for the torturous execution of the perpetrator. But I also understand.
Again, very bad move to bring up Daniel's personal trauma into a debate without his permission, and I don't know to what point.
That this position would be a position of a grieving family member. It would be based on emotions and not rationality. We know Hitler and Stalin were both beaten up by their respective fathers. They were both victims, but their personal tragedy cannot.
Now we're comparing Daniel Haqiqatjou to Hitler and Stalin. Amazing.
Be ignored or not brought under scrutiny if we want to avoid the crimes those psychopaths committed. Personal tragedy is no excuse to turn the lives of other people into tragedies. This is where I see Daniel Haqiqatjou. He's had a terrible experience, and I fear this experience has turned him into a cold-blooded, heartless, compassionless sadist at best, or psychopath at worst.
Just say all the bad words. Just say every single bad word under. Oh my God.
Ideas like Haqiqatjou propagate are dangerous for everyone.
Yeah, look, I mean, I know what Daniel is laughing. This is making him look better. Again, eventually Daniel does such a good job in making himself look really bad. Once the debate goes on, Daniel is like, it's hard to have sympathy for Daniel's position when Harris actually makes him argue for Sharia. So this ends up looking really bad for Daniel. But if you were just judging it based on this opening, Harris looks like it. I don't know. It just doesn't look good.
everyone, sharing the planet with him? How many Mullah Umars or Baghdadis will come out as a direct result of Haqiqatjou's views? We don't want to know the answer. So
Harris's internet
there might
stay
be-
away from Sharia.
This is Australia's internet connection, by the way, everyone. This is Australia. Australia, you're supposed to be a first world country, and you don't even have stable internet connection.
Oh,
No, I'm
just to
Sharia
be,
hands
pardon
out.
my interruption. Wait, just the last like maybe 5 seconds at pros. I just want to be sure the audience gets to hear your opening. If you want to repeat maybe what
I
you
had
said.
20 minutes. I had 20 minutes.
Yes, he knows you have 20 minutes. He's just saying that you got cut.
Oh, what I was saying was that your feed froze.
By the way, this James guy, he's such a great moderator. Like he's really good at what he does.
So it
Oh, right.
wasn't, at least on this side, we couldn't hear the last like
Okay.
10 seconds or so if you want to repeat it.
Okay. Let's just go with. So I'll start that again. This is where I see Daniel Haqiqatjou. He had a terrible experience. He's had a terrible experience, and I fear this experience has turned him into a cold-blooded, heartless, compassionless sadist, or at best, or psychopath at worst. Ideas people.
I mean, this, for example, a lot of people assume that I left Islam because of my tragic experience in Iran, right? And like, it's so easy to make that assumption. Like, a lot of people know my experience and something happened to me. I'm not going to go over here. And then a couple of years later, I left Islam. I mean, if you didn't know anything about me, you would just connect these together. You would be like, oh, I see what happened. He had this bad experience with Islam, and then he left Islam. It's naturally, you just like, oh, these one came before the other one. They must be related. And I know I know that that's not why I left. Like, I know that. I am aware that that's not the reason. Okay? So given that I have an experience with how easy something might look from outside, why these are connected, and how wrong the conclusion will be, that's why I'm so skeptical of you just like, oh, this happened, and then he did this. This must be connected. Like, that's your assumption. It might be, it might not be.
Like Haqiqatjou propagate are dangerous for everyone sharing the planet with him. How many Mullah Umars, Baghdadis will come out as a direct result of Haqiqatjou's views? We don't want to know the answer, so stay away from Sharia. Now, on the other hand, what am I proposing? The quest for implementing brutal punishments that Sharia hands out comes from either personal grievance, as it is most likely the case with Haqiqatjou, or from a very simplistic worldview that hardcore punishments somehow reduce crime. If your position is that of Haqiqatjou, then I think you would all agree that.
Okay, Daniel, stop touching your eye. Always have, like, see, when you're debating, just have like napkins, clean napkins next to you. So if something happens to your eye, you can pick up the clean. You know, your eye is like a gateway to bacteria. You touch everything throughout the day. Your hand, you shouldn't be touching your eyeballs with your hand. If you have something in your eye, pick up something clean and touch it with that.
That it is an emotional position and not rational. If you are a Shariaist due to the latter belief, then let me break it to you. Corporal or brutal punishments not necessarily lower the crime. Let me give you some examples. Homicide rates in Saudi Arabia, where you get beheading for murder, is 1.3 per 100,000, whereas in Japan, which is a far bigger country than Saudi Arabia, it's only 0.3 per 100,000, where there is no capital punishment. Finland, Sweden, Norway, all of these countries have less homicide rate than Saudi Arabia. I'm not saying that not give.
Guys, another thing that Harris is making a mistake here, and again, Daniel is going to make the same mistake times 1,000, is you can't just pick up examples of countries and be like, oh, look, these countries have this, and that country has that. Therefore, it must be that this is better. No. Okay, guys, this is why more people should just look at research rather than data. Most of us suck at interpreting data, okay? Like, you can't just take a few bullet point examples and be like, oh, this has this has that, therefore this must be better. Unless your argument could be, well, it's not necessarily always the case. If you're making that point, then fair enough. You could pick up one or two examples to show that this is not an absolute case. But if you want to find whether there's correlation and whether the correlation is because of causation, then you can't just pick up data. And not like the worst situation, the worst way to come up with conclusions is anecdotal evidence. The second worst after that is using a almost anecdotal, like picking up a few data points to come up with a correlation and then assuming causation. The third worst is to look at actual statistical data, but because you're not a researcher, coming up with interpretations that actually those data would not lead to that interpretation. The next runner-up is for you to look at research, but then you look at the conclusion, but not necessarily like spin the conclusion in a way to say something that the research isn't. And the best one is to actually look at research and also note that just because this research exists, it doesn't mean that every other research would say the same thing. And then the most superior way of all is to look at meta-analysis, which takes all research into account and comes up. But even then, even after that, you still look at everything with skepticism, because even meta-analysis could be wrong, okay? So if you want to find it has been shown that, for example, capital punishment does not deter people from committing the crimes that it's supposed to deter. So Harris is right about that. But I think it takes more than saying, like, oh, look at Saudi Arabia and look at Sweden, and therefore this. Like, it takes a lot more than that to come up with conclusions like this.
Giving capital punishment is the reason for lowered murder rate. But I'm saying that giving out death sentences does not lower murder rate. The problem is far more complicated. It depends on various variables, like economic prosperity, for instance, attitudes towards honor culture, alcohol problem, divorce rate, etc. If you defend capital punishments for this reason, then as I showed you, it's simply not true. So we can deduce that having Sharia is not just useless, because it doesn't serve any purpose, it doesn't lower the crime at best, but very dangerous at worst, because public executions, totalitarian societies devoid of free speech and personal freedom is not conducive to a healthy lifestyle. On the other hand, legal system built on reason, debates that go through rapid evolution is not only useful, but also beneficial because it brings happiness, prosperity, and overall a better quality of life.
True.
You got it. Thank you very much for that opening statement. And want to let you know, folks, if it's your first time here at Modern Day Debate, we hope you feel welcome no matter what walk of life you are from, whether you be atheist, Muslim, Christian, you name it. We are glad you're here, as we are a nonpartisan or neutral channel, and we want everybody to feel welcome. So what we are going to do is kick it over to Daniel for his opening statement. Thrilled to have you here, Daniel. The floor is all yours.
Bismillah, alhamdulillah, salatu wa salam ala rasulillah. Thank you to Modern Day Debates for hosting, and thank you to everyone watching. The debate today is about Sharia versus human rights. Sharia just means Islamic law. Islamic law is not just corporal punishment. It's a holistic system of life that governs everything from how Muslims pray and worship, how they get married, to criminal punishments and even economic matters. My main point today is simple.
One thing I think Harris should have done was to point, like in his opening, how much modernity. So the first thing I think he should have done is list all the values that Sharia promotes that we have an issue with. And then the second thing he should have done is to show how much modernity has improved people's, like give like a bullet points of how much modernity has improved people's lives in the past 100 years. Those are the two bullet points that I think he should have started with, in my opinion.
Harris Sultan and other ex-Muslims are playing a con game.
Okay, now Daniel is doing the horrible thing that Harris did, okay? He started off like, okay, I'm the nice guy here. Like Harris was like, this guy is a sadist. He has no void of any human compassion. So he looked like a dick. And Daniel seemed to be like, oh my God, Daniel is gonna do the opposite, and he's gonna look like a nice guy. He's like, oh, thank you for having me. Thank you to Modern Day Debates for hosting this. Thank you for anybody who's watching. We're like, oh, he seems nice. And then it's like, Harris is playing a con game. Oh, okay, no, he's being a dick as well. So he's starting to say, he just started like. No, like you're just like assuming, like again, the same criticism I had from Harris, I'm having this for Daniel. You don't know if his, like, even if you disagree with Harris's points, how do you, like, let's see, maybe if he makes an argument, maybe dear Muslims who might be watching this, who might even agree with Daniel or don't assume that you know the intentions, even if you hear me or Harris or, Abdullah Samir and Apostate Prophet or anybody else, like, what's her name? God damn it. Noodly Noodles. I never remember her name. She's good. She's on TikTok. Somebody mentioned her name. We should mention more female content creators in our on the ex-Muslim side. What was I saying? Like, even if you listen to us and you're like, that is stupid. Armin is such an idiot. What is it? What is he trying to say? Like, he's so obviously wrong. He has no clue what he's talking about. Okay. Oh my God. What Armin is teaching is like dangerous. It's extremely dangerous. Even if you think that, and you might be right. Okay. Maybe your views are really good and my views are horrible. Don't assume that my intentions are bad unless you have like an evidence for it. Maybe I'm not, maybe me or Harris, maybe we are conning you. Maybe like, oh my God, obviously Islam is true. Obviously Sharia is the best way, but we shouldn't let people find that out. We should, like, the human rights is obviously like indefensible. Modernity is obviously horrible, but we have to con people. We have to lie to them. Like, maybe that's reality. Maybe that's actually like what we're doing. Maybe we're like trying to con you, okay? But maybe it's not. You don't know that. Maybe we genuinely think that, no, this is actually the best thing for humanity. Maybe that's also a possibility. Oh my God. Let me see. Infidel Noodle. Thank you, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Infidel Noodle. Yes. I'm so sorry. I forget. Maybe I'm sexist. I remembered all the content creators except the female one. I'm sexist. I'm sexist. No, I'm kidding. I'm not sexist. It's just TikTok. I don't spend time on TikTok. She's on TikTok. Is she on YouTube now? She should be on YouTube. Anyways, look, music guy saying, I love Infidel Noodle and Apostate Aladdin. I don't know much about Apostate Aladdin. I'm sorry. But anyways, we gave her. Anyways, let's continue. I'm kidding, by the way, guys. Don't take any of this seriously, okay? I have to be clear when I'm kidding because apparently people can't tell. So all my jokes are going to be ruined because now how horrible people are at telling when I'm joking. I have to like tell you when I'm joking, which ruins the joke when I do that. Anyways.
They're being dishonest with their audience, and sometimes
look, he's assumed dishonesty. Like, he's doing the same thing here. He's like, so apparently Daniel is a sadist and void of any human compassion, and Harris is dishonest and a con artist. Great. Personal attack followed up by personal attack. Very mature, guys, both of you.
Outright lying to them. Today I'm going to
lying. You don't know if he's lying. You don't know. He might be thinking like this. He might, even if you disagree with them, he might actually think these things are true.
To focus on 3 of their biggest lies. Lie number 1, promoters of human rights like Harris claim human rights are a beacon of hope. Human rights are the mark of civilization and progress, and everyone should adopt human rights.
Yes.
But is this true?
They should.
Do human rights bring prosperity and progress?
Human rights bring human rights. Human rights bring human rights. We support human rights because human rights are good for people. See, do they bring prosperity? Like, I think you will see what his game is.
192 out of 195 countries of the world have officially adopted the UN's Universal Declaration of Human Rights. That's 98% of all countries in the world. Do we see prosperity and progress in these countries? Let's look at the GDP.
Well, not all of them, but most of them. And even if it wasn't the case, just wait. Even if it wasn't the case that the GDP was growing because of human rights, we don't necessarily support human rights for the GDP growth. We're supporting human rights because it's better for people to have their human rights.
GDP per capita. North America is at $61,000 per capita. Western Europe is at $54,000 per capita. Australia and New Zealand are at about $55,000. These regions are at the top of the heap. It must be because they're so strong in terms of human rights and democracy, right?
Who's saying that? Like maybe they are, I don't know, but who's saying that, oh yeah, we should support human rights because look at what human rights is doing to GDP per capita? Is that an argument that I'm unaware of? Like, are people making that point? Like, oh yes, human rights, support human rights because look at our GDP per capita. Look at how much we're growing economically. Like, is that the actual reason why human rights advocates support human rights? Or they just like, yeah, we need to support human rights because we want people to be able to have rights. Like, we want them to not suffer. We want them not to be oppressed. Like, what?
But let's compare that to Eastern Europe. Just $9,000 GDP per capita. Latin America is less than 7,000.
Do you really want to play this game, Daniel? Do you really want to play this game? Because do you want to like look at the GDP per capita of Islamic countries? Are you saying human rights are bad because there are some countries with good human rights that have good GDP per capita, and some countries with good human rights that have lower GDP per capita? Well, Daniel, if that's your argument for why human rights are bad, I have news for you, because we could go through the GDP per capita of average Islamic countries, and that's not gonna be a game we want to play. Oh, Black Atheist Rant is saying, unfortunately, a lot of atheists make that argument. Well, they are idiots. I haven't seen that argument. Human rights activists and people who promote human rights, they just like in for human rights because human rights just protects you against oppression, or wrongdoing, or like, yeah. So we'll see. Okay, but we'll get to this more. Okay, hold on.
$1,400 per capita. India, the world's largest democracy, is only at $2,000. Sub-Saharan Africa is at.
Is that because they have better human rights? Are they suffering economically because they have better human rights? Like, there's a lot of, Daniel, that a country's economic progress is like multifactorial, right? There's many things that affects a country's economic development. It's not like, oh, look, and he also admitted that some countries with great human rights are great when it comes to GDP per capita. His argument is like, oh, but some countries with good human rights have not very good GDP per capita. That must mean that human rights are bad. What the hell are you talking about? Obviously, it doesn't just take human rights for your country to prosper. Like, you think like it's an on and off switch? Like, do you think like people are saying like, oh yeah, have better human rights, and all of a sudden everything will be fixed? Your economy will just everything, like all your economic problems will get fixed. There's so many things that affect your economy. Trade relations, access to education, corruption levels, culture, access to not just trade relationship, but access to trade routes, your history. Oh, one of your favorites, whether you've been colonized before or not, or you were the colonized or the colonizer, that has an impact. There's so many things. God, there's so many things that affect some country's economy.
At 1,000.
Education is a very important one, by the way, which actually indirectly could be like the right to education could also be seen as like a human right. So maybe like that's related, but we'll see.
$1,500. For Muslim countries, the average GDP per capita is $7,500. And if you exclude the oil-rich countries, the number is at $4,600.
Wait. I was thinking, I think if I press.
And if you exclude the oil GDP per capita, $1,500. For Muslim countries, the average GDP per capita is $7,500.
Okay, so for Muslim countries, you're looking at the average. But for non-Muslim countries with good human rights record, he's just giving you the examples of the worst. Like, what is the average for the countries with good human rights record? Again, guys, you don't come up with conclusions. Just like I criticize Harris Sultan, Daniel is also like giving you examples of countries and giving you anecdotes. Like, this is not how you come up with trends. You can't just pick a few sample of data points and be like, oh, look at GDP per capita, look at human rights. Therefore, these things must be correlated, and not only correlated, but caused by each other. But let me see what his conclusion for the Islamic countries are.
$500. And if you exclude the oil-rich countries, the number is at $4,600.
Okay, so he understands. Okay, yeah. Another thing that affects your economy is natural resources, right? Natural resources has a huge impact on your economy. So he understands that it's not just like human rights or Islam. I'm not going to make the same claim about Islam. Like, guys, let me be clear. I wasn't saying that Islam, if you're Islamic, therefore your GDP per capita is going to be low. I'm just saying if you want to play that game, then it's not going to look good for Islam. I'm just like, I wouldn't go with the claim like, oh, look, Islamic countries have lower GDP per capita. Therefore, the only conclusion that we could make from this is that Islam has a bad effect on the economy. Obviously, it's more complicated than that. I wasn't trying to make that argument. I'm just saying if I was using his line of reasoning, it wouldn't look good for Islam. But anyways, let's continue.
So when people want to say Muslim countries are economically behind because of lack of human rights, the reality is Muslim countries are at the same level as most of these human rights respecting countries.
Oh my God. Okay. No, look at what that was. Oh, that was so. Okay. He called Harris dishonest and lying. And what he just did right now, I don't know if he's stupid or dishonest. Give me a third option because none of this looks good. Okay. Give me a third option, because what he just did is he looked at the average Islamic countries, GDP per capita, and then he said it's comparable to some of the worst countries that do have good human rights. And yet, like, he's comparing the worst of countries with a good human rights record with the average of Islamic countries. That's either dishonest or incredibly stupid. I'm trying to find a third option to be charitable to Daniel. I can't think of anyone right now. And can somebody come up with a more charitable interpretation of what just happened? Yeah, Puya is saying he pointed out India, and India isn't exactly the best in regards to human rights on secularism. Yes, based on our standard, Puya, India doesn't look very good, but based on Islamic standards, India is fantastic, okay? So I know we are very critical of India's human rights record because we compare them to the most ideal, and India looks horrible when you compare that to the most ideal countries. But like we're comparing it to Islamic standards. India is fantastic. India is amazing based on Islamic standards. So let's. Anybody a more charitable take? David is saying this is why Harris said he won't do an actual debate. Just see how these guys treat people like apostate prophets. Guys, I'm trying to see. I'm talking to you guys about what we're discussing right now. Like, help me out. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see how dishonest or stupid that is? I don't know which one would be worse, if he's being dishonest or stupid. Honestly, I assumed like Daniel is smarter than this. So I don't know if this is like, it seems like cherry picking. Maybe stupid. You guys are going with stupid. So you guys have no charitable take on this bad take by Daniel. It's horrible. It is horrible.
Why do countries like America, UK, Britain, Australia...
Wait, give me a second. I need to go take a pee break. Talk to each other while I'll be back. Wait, while I'll be back. I can't speak today. All right, I'm back. What happened? What did you guys do? Dishonest and sneaky, both. I'm gonna be charitable to Daniel and say he's just being stupid. Okay, I know I assumed better than Daniel because he's supposed to be he's a Harvard graduate. How could he make some dumb mistakes like this? But let's continue. Or maybe I'm being dumb. Maybe I'm not seeing something that he's saying. But let me know if you think. What do you think?
Have 10 times, 20 times, 30 times the GDP per capita of countries in Latin America, Eastern Europe, Sub-Saharan Africa. Why this massive inequality? None of the countries in these regions are Muslim, and all of them respect and abide by human rights.
Nobody said if you're not Muslim and respect human rights. I mean, maybe somebody said, but nobody in their right mind has said if you respect human rights, you will just prosper. Your GDP per capita just gonna go. Like, imagine like you have an African country that is like not Islamic, like in Southern Africa, and they're like have a very low GDP per capita, and then we go to them like, hey, just have a gay pride parade, and tomorrow you're just gonna see joblessness is gonna stop. Everyone's like income is gonna rise. It's like, yeah, just support gay rights and everything will be fixed. It's just oil will be gushing out of the ground. People will wake up tomorrow and notice that bank accounts are full of money. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But like, what did you expect? Like, what's this argument?
Consider Botswana. Considered one of the oldest democracies in the Southern Hemisphere, one of the earliest adopters of LGBT rights in Africa, very high female involvement with voting and politics, but it has only 1/10 the GDP per capita of the US. Or consider Haiti. They ratified their secular constitution in 1805, over 200 years ago. They had a female president in 1990. Their GDP per capita is 1/50th the United States. And on and on. On this other side of the coin, you have countries that have openly rejected human rights and democracy, like China, which has a GDP of $10,000, and Singapore, which has a GDP per capita of $65,000. So either way you look at it, there is no correlation between adoption of human rights and democracy with economic prosperity.
First of all, there is. It's not as absolute as you're making it seem like to be. And I will show you guys right now, okay? Second of all, even if there wasn't, okay? Even if there wasn't, we would, okay, let's say there's three options. Let's look at three options. Human rights, human rights improves your economy. Improves your GDP per capita. Option one. Option two. Human rights, having better human rights record, has no effect on your GDP per capita. Option three. Better human rights has a negative impact on your GDP per capita. It's one of these options, right? Daniel is saying, oh, I got, it's not option A. It's not option A. So and why is he saying it's not option A? Is because here's some anecdotal evidence. Here's Botswana and China. First of all, that's not how you come up with any conclusion based on a handful of examples. But let's say he's right, which he's wrong, which I'm going to show you. But even if it was option B or C, even if it was option C, even if it was like accepting human rights in a country will actually have some negative effect on your economy, it will still be worth the cost. Like, think about it. Like, oh yeah, let's oppress gay people because accepting gay rights has a negative effect on our economy. So you basically, let's sacrifice gay people for the benefit of the economy. Like, no, no. If it has a cost on the economy, so be it, right? So be it. Like, we would rather people have good rights, even if it comes at the cost. But it happens to be not the case. Let me show you what he did, okay? Let me see what you guys are saying. Okay. Let me actually finish this last bite before I bring up this map. Okay, almost done. Okay. Let's look at this map together, okay? Because he gives this example of Botswana, right? So look at what it looks like he did, right? So blue means better protection for gay rights, right? Red is like death penalty. This is the worst, okay? So he's like, look at Botswana. Look at this country. They have a good, like they were one of the earliest people who accepted gay rights. And they're doing terrible. Their economy is like horrible. So look at what you would have to do to come up with a conclusion like that. You would have to do some serious cherry picking. You would have to look at this map and look at all the blue, and they're like, okay, I need to go find one of these blue countries where they have a crappy economy. Like you have to this is like some serious cherry picking. You're like, okay, this is like mostly good. Maybe in South America I could find an example, but not in North. Like, oh no, this is mostly Europe. Even Eastern Europe is like better mostly than in South Africa. Like, okay, I'm gonna have to go like it's possibly gonna be in Africa. Like, yeah, look at all these red ones that's like hovered over the Middle East and North Africa, which is mostly Islamic. And even when you go outside of North Africa and the Middle East area, if you go to the Far East, it's mostly like Islamic countries here as well, like, you know, Malaysia. But like this, I forget that trend. Let me just go find the outliers. Look at South Africa, where it's the worst country. Like, let me just pick this country. It's this one. He picked this one, right? Let me just pick this one, which has the horrible GDP per capita and is blue. Like, the amount of cherry picking that you have to do to come up with a conclusion is like so intense. Like, I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying? But but how would you come up with conclusions? Like, let's put this map away. How do you leave this map? Oh, there we go. Okay. Do you guys see what I'm saying? What I'm trying to do? You understand the words that no? Shouldn't do that. All right. Okay, hold on. Let me look at. Okay, so let me see. Let's actually see. So we're saying even if human rights had a negative effect on the economy, we will still support human rights, even if it was the case, right? But I was curious to then go find out whether it has a negative or positive effect. And let me teach you guys on the actual way you go find these things out, right? So, because again, guys, I know I've been saying this a lot, but these things are complicated. These things are complicated. You can't just look at one or two. And this is why I'm telling you guys to not look at data, look at research. Because for most of us are not very good at analyzing data. When you look at research that is published, you know, peer-reviewed and published under institutions with a good record, like, you know, well-known institutions, you know, people, you know, under, you know, papers that have been cited by other credible people in the field. Because what these people do is they don't do what Daniel did. They don't go like, oh, look, here's an example. Here's an example of a country with a good human rights record and a bad economy. They're like, oh my God, human rights must be bad for the economy. Again, I didn't know before this whether human rights is good for the economy or not. Just because Daniel brought it up, I was supporting of the human rights, even without the knowledge of it being good or bad for the economy. But given that Daniel brought it up, I got curious. I was like, actually, let me actually go see if there's any information, if there has been any research done on this. Again, these are people that are trained to look at the data and control. Here's the key thing: control for external variables to be able to see if there is correlation, and if the correlation is suggests causation. Okay. You haven't demonstrated correlation with anecdotal evidence, and even if you did, That's not how you find if the correlation suggests that there's a causation. That's what these research papers do, okay? So I'm just going to read one study in 2007, and then a second study, this second study that is really recent, 2021, okay? So this is pretty good, I think. You guys want me to zoom in? Let's look at the effects of human rights on a country's economy. This is how, guys, this is how you find this information. And this was so easy for me to find. It took me less than 5 minutes to find this. Less than 2 minutes to find this. Okay? So the summary includes at beginning of this research paper. Again, you could go find it yourself if you don't believe me. It first tells you what the issue is, and then it gives you the conclusion. And if you don't believe this one, I have a more recent one as well. Let me just quickly read this for you guys. The summary of this one is saying, again, so this one was done by the University of Kassel, and it was published under the Haqiqatjou, which is the International Review of Social Issues, and this study has been cited. How many times was it? It was 49 times, okay? So it says there are 3 positions concerned. So it first tells you what the positions are, and then it tells you what the study finds, which position is correct. So there are 3 positions concerning the economic effects of human rights discussed among economists. Some economists argue that only property rights matter for economic growth, and basic human rights can even make the legal system less efficient. Others argue that negative rights are generally welfare increasing, while positive rights tend to reduce income and growth over time. Yet a third group of economists argues that elements of all groups of human rights are a precondition for making productive use of one's resources and are thus efficiency enhancing. Based on a cross-country, okay, so now it's going to tell you what this research found. Based on a cross-country analysis, the effects of different groups of human rights on economic growth are estimated in this paper. The transmission channels through which the different rights affect growth are identified by estimating their effects on investment and overall productivity. Okay, so there's basically 2 elements that could human rights could have an effect on the economy. The first one is investment, and the second one is overall productivity. So remember these 2 different elements. Okay, so now here's the conclusion. Basic human rights have indeed a positive effect on investment, but do not seem to contribute to productivity. Social rights, in turn, are not conducive to investment in physical capital, but do contribute to productivity improvements. So it's so interesting. So basically, it's talking about human rights, and it's cutting it into 2 categories: basic human rights, and the other one is social rights. And it's saying basic human rights improves the economy because basic human rights brings more investment into your country. Okay, it doesn't improve productivity, but it helps your economy because it improves investment. Social rights, on the other hand, does the opposite. Social rights doesn't have much of an effect on investment, but social rights improves this productivity in your country. Right? So social rights, it's another type of human rights, improves economy because it improves productivity, but not investment. And here's the last sentence, which is the key. This is so good. Like, I didn't know this, guys. I was such a simp for modernity and human rights, and I didn't even know this. Thank you so much, Daniel Haqiqatjou, because now I'm an even bigger simp of human rights. I didn't know human rights is actually good for the economy. I just like human rights because I like human rights because it's good for people. I didn't know it improves the economy. Because of you, I have even more reason to tell you why you should support human rights. So the last statement, which is key, none of the 4 groups of rights covered in this analysis ever has a significant negative effect on any of the economic variables included. Not a single one of these human rights has a negative effect. There are positive effects and no negative effects. Thank you, Daniel Haqiqatjou, for making me find this out. Okay, so now, like that may be just one outlier study. So I kept on looking for more studies to see if there's anything more recent. Okay, so here's another one that I found. Okay, you guys could go look for these yourselves as well if you don't believe me, if you think I'm cherry picking. Honestly, I like kept looking for anything I could find, and these are the ones. Again, don't believe me, go do your own hunt for papers like this, and let me know if I was wrong in the comment section. Okay, don't believe what I'm saying, go look these up yourself. Okay, so this one was done at this Polish Journal of Economics, which I've looked Polish people, your names are unpronounceable, so I'm gonna try. Gospodarka Narodowa. I feel like I just summoned the demon by trying that. I don't know what this is. But okay, so this was another. Okay, let's look at what this one finds. Okay, actually, the abstract of this one didn't have the conclusion summarized in it. So I actually had to go find the PDF. Again, if you think I'm lying, this is that one, right? So this is the same. Okay. And let's go look at the conclusion, because I had to go actually find the conclusion in the paper itself. Okay. All right. So I'm going to read to you the first paragraph and the last paragraph, because this middle paragraph gets very technical. So I'm just going to read you the first paragraph and the last one. And if you're a nerd and you understand like statistical keywords like this, then go read the middle paragraph as well. Okay. But let me actually read you the first paragraph and last one. So conclusions of this 2021 paper. Okay. It says, the paper provides a comprehensive analysis of direct and indirect relationships between de facto civil liberties, protections, and economic development in the post-socialist countries of Central and Eastern Europe. The empirical analysis is based on panel vector autoregressive model. The obtained results provide grounds for verifying the following hypothesis. Okay, so these are not just hypotheses. He's saying the obtained results provide grounds for verifying the following hypothesis. So it's saying the data in this research verifies these two claims. Okay, hypothesis 1, the relationship between economic growth and civil liberties in post-socialist states. And guys, look at how careful this research paper are. Like, they're not making journal or statement. They're like, the scope of this paper is only these countries that they are analyzed. Okay, but again, I'm trying to show you everything that I could find. So again, the relationship between economic growth and civil liberties in post-socialist states is mutual. It's mutual. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, it works both ways. It works both ways. That's how beautiful. It's glorious, guys. Look at the beauty of these human rights. You should all be simping for human rights after this, okay? Every single one of you that is watching this. Look at this. It's saying GDP growth responds to changes in civil liberties, and civil liberties responds to changes in GDP growth, okay? So they both affect each other. It works both ways, okay? And hypothesis 2, guys, if you think I'm wrong about the way I'm reading this, let me know in the comment. I'm completely open to being corrected and everything. Don't trust anything I'm saying. Again, be skeptical. Go look at the research yourself. Maybe my understanding is wrong. I'm just reading it live here with you, okay? Again, I'm not saying don't take anyone's, you already know. Hypothesis 2, foreign direct investment, domestic investment, total factor productivity, and judicial independence are intermediaries in the civil liberties economic growth relationships. Okay, so now let's look at the last paragraph, which I think is the beautiful part of this study. On the whole, our results have several policy implications. They highlight the importance of civil liberties for the economic development of a country. Again, this is so beautiful that I have to read it one more time. These are based on actual research rather than anecdotal examples, a handful of examples that Botswana, that Daniel Haqiqatjou keeps picking, okay? One more time. they highlight the importance of civil liberties for the economic development of a country. Therefore, governments in post-socialist states should not overlook the need to adhere to rights protection standards while implementing other policies. Moreover, foreign and direct domestic investments, productivity, and the level of judicial independence may boost the effect of civil liberties on economic development and the effect of economic development on civil liberties. In addition, policymakers should be aware of the fact that the social and economic development of countries will result in higher demand among citizens for high quality civil liberties protection. Failure to account for that in public policies could potentially lead to social unrest and decline in countries' development. Okay, guys, that's how you do it. That's how it's done. Okay, that's how you are we learning? Are we learning? Are we learning in the live chat? Huh? Okay, so here's a problem. I could do this off air. I don't know what I would have done that live on air, right? I mean, this one would be easy because Daniel is just picking anecdotal evidence, and I was like, oh, that's just anecdotal. You're just picking a handful of examples to make a point. So I would have, this would be, if this is why Harris, it's better that Harris did this, like Harris would do something like this, because I would want to respond to all of this if I was me. And if I was responding to all of this, we wouldn't be hearing Daniel telling everybody that child marriage is okay, right? Because it would be a back and forth between me and Daniel on these topics, right? But even if the topic was like, if I ever have a discussion with Daniel, which I probably won't because I don't think he would be interested. I don't know. But I would be okay with not talking about Sharia and defending modernity, okay? Because I know he's interested in like attacking modernity, and I'm such a cheerleader of modernity. I would like, if he wants to have that discussion, I would be interested in like, okay, because we have enough videos of Daniel now showing that he supports slavery, child marriage, and wife beating, and all of that, and violence, right? So I think like it's good, like if it's good, like if the next discussion, if there is any discussion, to be like, okay, here's why here's in defense of modernity. So I would have that discussion with him, right? But I'm glad that Harris didn't. It would be a waste of time. It would be a major opportunity lost. But even if I did, like Daniel sometimes doesn't use really dumb anecdotal, so apparently dumb examples like this, because this was really bad. This is like, I'm going to be honest. I expected more from Daniel. He's a Harvard graduate. Like, this is so dumb what he just did here. It's beyond stupid. I don't even understand. Like, if he's not that stupid, then he's being dishonest. Like, I don't understand what he's trying to do here. What his conclusion is. It's so obvious that he's wrong. But sometimes he gives you data of research that it's not like, he doesn't use anecdotal evidence like this. He actually cites research. And if I'm debating somebody live on air, I'm not going to be able to go and check if he's right live on air, right? Off air, I could go and check like the research and be like, oh no, this doesn't actually say what Daniel said it did, right? But what would I do when he makes a claim like that on air? So I think what I would do in that case, I was thinking about this. I would say like, Daniel, every time I check something that you cited in research, so far, every time I've checked, maybe sometimes you cited something properly, but so far, every time I checked, the thing that you said was the opposite of what you claimed it was. Like, it was a very, so excuse me if I can't check live on air right now if the research that you're citing is an accurate, if the conclusion of the research you're citing is an accurate description of what the research actually intended to say. I can't check that in a debate. But I want to let the audience know that I have before, and it always came out that you weren't being honest, or either you weren't being honest or you didn't understand the research. That's how I think I would respond. No, okay, you're wrong. It said, please differentiate between postmodernism and modernity. Postmodernist resentment is what Daniel meant. No, you're completely wrong. He actually mixes them together. He uses criticism people have of postmodernity as a way to attack modernity. Okay, so he tries to use some very legitimate criticism that a lot of us have of postmodern ideas as a way to sell the idea that this is what modernity is about. So your take on this is wrong. Okay, let's continue.
Harris, you need to explain.
By the way, this is why we're doing this stream, because Harris, I'm glad that Harris focused on the things that he shouldn't have, but a lot of people were saying Harris should have responded to this, and I don't think he should have. That would have been a missed opportunity. But we're going to do a lot of live streams going forward. Like, this is going to take a long time. We're going to be part 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to part 10 probably, right? And I'm going to like address everything Daniel is saying here, okay? So if you guys wanted a response to everything Daniel said in this debate, that's what we're doing here. So if you're here, subscribe, because I'm going to like microanalyze everything Daniel said in this debate, okay?
Explain this. These countries that have nothing to do with Islam, that have adopted human rights and democracy and women's rights and LGBT rights, why are they stuck in abject poverty?
Because of many different factors, Daniel. And the economy of a country is not just dependent on their human rights. It's multifactorial. You should know that, for God's sakes. For Iblis's sake, you went to Harvard, Daniel. You went to Harvard. Why do you think it's like why do you think it's so black and white? Why do you think it's just like one factor? It's just like single factor that affects a country's economy? Like, how do you not know this? You are not this dumb. Daniel, I know you're not this stupid. I know you're not this stupid. Why are you saying this? This is embarrassing.
Because you want to blame problems of poverty, problems of violence and social dysfunction on Islam. So
does Harris do that? Does Harris blame everything that goes wrong? I mean, I don't know. I don't think he does. If he does, I will criticize Harris for that. Are we like, are anti-Islam critics such as me are saying that everything wrong with the world is because of Islam? Anything that goes wrong with the country's economy or corruption or like every problem that they have is because of Islam? Are we actually claiming that? I mean, if anybody in our camp is claiming that, then show me and I will call them out. That's a very dumb take. Or is this a straw man of what Harris is saying? Because I've never heard Harris say that all the problems in the world is because of Islam. Navabi is saying, would you like to debate with Daniel if he offers you? Oh, yeah, for sure. I would definitely take that offer. I don't think he would offer me that debate, but if he does, I would definitely say yes to it.
So how do you and women's rights and LGBT rights, why are they stuck in abject poverty? Because you want to blame problems of poverty, problems of violence and social dysfunction on Islam.
Nope. We just say Islam makes things worse. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to speak for Harris, but at least I would say Islam makes things worse. We don't say that it's all because of Islam.
So how do you explain these countries that have nothing to do?
Like, seriously, like, if we're saying, like, do you really think that we're saying every single problem in every country is because of Islam? Then what? How would we explain, I don't know, Christian countries that are experiencing poverty? Like what?
With Islam that have these same problems and often worse problems. Why is it that human rights only brings prosperity for North America and Western Europe and the majority of the rest of the world suffers?
Again, because it's multifactorial, as I showed you in the research, that it does have a positive effect. It doesn't mean that it will solve. On average, it seems based on the research I showed you that human rights does have a positive effect of GDP per capita. Saying that it has a positive effect is not the same as like, oh, your poverty will be erased for sure because now you have human rights. Nobody is claiming that. I mean, I shouldn't say nobody. If anybody is claiming that, they're out of their mind. Nobody sane is claiming that.
Better yet, explain why people living in human rights abiding democracies in Latin America, in Africa, are literally dying to migrate to America and Western Europe. Why are they risking their lives to escape their human rights hellholes, Harris? Explain.
What? Because they're suffering because their economy is bad and they would want to go somewhere where things are better? Again, human rights is not everything. It's good, it's something, it has positive effects, but it's not everything.
That. And we don't have to just limit ourselves to GDP. Look,
this is so simple. This is too easy. I get why people were frustrated with Harris that he didn't respond to these things. But again, I'm glad he didn't, because he needed to highlight how bad Daniel's Islamic views are. And this was a trap. This was a trap. And I would have taken this bait. This is bait because Daniel doesn't want the argument to be how bad Islam is. Daniel wants the argument to be how bad modernity is. And given how easy these are to tackle, like I would be like, oh my God, I have to address this. Like I would be so tempted to address this that Daniel would have successfully make me go for this trap to make the discussion about judging modernity, because I'm like, oh my God, these are some dumb takes. I need to address them. And all of a sudden the nature of the discussion will be completely on modernity and how good it is. And it would, so I'm glad it didn't work on Harris.
Look at the life.
Maybe, okay, here's the best charitable take on Daniel. Ooh, guys, the best charitable take on Daniel is that he made these points. Again, I'm not saying this is the case. It's obviously not, but this is just funny to think of, okay? Maybe he made these dumb points because he wanted to make so easy for us to dismantle it, so that we would be like, oh, I have to show how dumb Daniel is being, so that we don't spend talking about the fact that Sharia allows child marriage. I'm kidding. That's a conspiracy. It's just funny. I'm not saying that's conspiracy.
Expectancy. Latin America.
See, I have to tell you guys when I'm joking, because you guys are dumb and you don't get it when I'm joking.
Eastern Europe, Sub-Saharan Africans have 5 to 15 years lower life expectancy. Those countries also reported far lower happiness levels, according to the UN's 2017 World Happiness.
No crap, they have a bad economy. Of course they have lower happiness levels. Again, just because like, hey, is everybody sad? Like, are people sad in your country? Guess what? We have gay marriage now. Why are you sad? You're starving, don't be sad that you're starving. We have gay marriage now. You should be happy. Obviously, it doesn't work like that, Daniel.
This report, according to self-reported happiness, countries of North America and Western Europe have the highest levels of happiness, while Latin America, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Eastern Europe have the lowest levels. So why is this, Harris? None of these countries are Muslim countries. They're all democratic.
Why is this? Because you have went and it found the handful of the worst examples. That's why, Daniel, it will obviously be like this. You're not looking at the entire net effect. You seem to be incapable of looking at the entire net effect. And there's two problems. You're not looking at the entire picture, as I did, and you think the relationship is binary. It's either these places are going to just be like utopia because they accepted human rights, or like they're going to be hellholes. Like it's like maybe he just has a slight benefit effect. It's not as binary, and your analysis is just dumb. This is so dumb. It's unbelievable how dumb this analysis is. Like I am feeling secondhand embarrassment from Daniel.
Countries, and secular countries, some of them even have very high levels of atheism. So why aren't they enjoying?
By the way, the people, the idiots in the live chat that think I'm a secret Muslim apologist, they think like, oh my God, Armin was criticizing Harris. This proves like, who's the idiot in the live chat? I don't know, the Hindutva or some other idiots that think like, oh, Armin is a secret Muslim apologist. He's like doesn't criticize Islam. And they're like in the live chat, like, oh, look, he's criticizing Harris. We know that he's friends with Daniel. Like, where are you right now? I'm criticizing Daniel. Where are you? Like, I'm crapping on Daniel stronger than I did on Harris. Where are you guys? Where are you with your conspiracy theories? Yeah, this is what I'm just pretending to be against Daniel because I'm just such a simp for Islam, huh?
Progress and prosperity.
Like Puya is saying, is that a thing? Yeah, Puya, it has been a thing ever since I attacked Hinduism. A lot of people, Hindus, think like I'm like a secret jihadi or something.
Let's call this question the Botswana question.
The Botswana, guys, he thinks Oh my God, it's so cute. Daniel, you're so adorable. You think that this is such a gut shoe. Okay, I should stop with the personal attacks, but this is really bad, Daniel. I'm being honest, okay? You think this is such a gotcha. He thinks that this is such a slam dunk against human rights. He thinks he has found the Achilles heel of human rights, that he's actually labeling it. This is the Botswana question. Like, oh, the advocates of human rights, what are you going to do? I'm going to label this. I'm going to coin this term, the Botswana question. You guys, we're toast. We're done. How are we like, this is a thing now. This is the end of human rights advocacy. How are we going to handle the Botswana question? The Botswana question. This is it, guys. We're done. Enlightenment values, modernity, human rights. He's labeling it. He genuinely thought, okay, he's not being dishonest. He's actually being dumb. He's idiot. He actually was, I think, again, I have to be skeptical. I think like he genuinely thought that he has like found the thing that will demonstrate to everybody how human rights. He made this assumption like, oh, first of all, he came up with this argument that we're not making, that if human rights was great, then every country that accepts human rights, their GDP per capita has to be through the roof, right? Oh, and then I'm going to find a few examples of countries that have human rights and the GDP per capita is bad. And this is going to prove beyond reasonable doubt that human rights is bad for GDP, which we saw it was the opposite. And thirdly, again, even if it had a bad effect on GDP per capita, which it doesn't, we still would be supporting human rights because they're human rights, because we care for humans. It would be worth the cost. Anyways, but if the effect was slight, not like horrible, right? Anyways, it doesn't even matter because it has a positive effect.
If Harris,
what should we call? We should label this term. We should be like, we're bigger simps for human rights now because it has the what effect? I don't know. We have to find a cool label.
cannot explain these discrepancies, if he cannot answer this Botswana question, then
oh my God, he really thinks this. If he can't answer this Botswana question, well, I answered it. Harris didn't answer it because he has this other thing he wanted to do. Well, I answered it, Daniel. I showed you research. I responded. I destroyed your Botswana question.
He should admit that democracy and human rights are just a big hoax.
Oh, God. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're such a big... Well, what are you going to do now, Daniel?
Harris wants people to hate Islam by trying to pin the issue of poverty and social dysfunction to Muslim countries. But as we've seen...
Does he do that? Somebody tell me. Somebody who's more familiar with Harris. Like, does he think, like... Does Harris say that every single poor country is poor because of Islam?
It's not a strong connection. Lie number 2, Harris wants...
All right, we're going to stop it here because we've gone for 2 hours and 15 minutes. We're 20 minutes in, guys. We spent 2 hours covering 20 minutes of this stream. Again, if you want to see, so lie number 2, we're at the, remember, at 21-minute mark. So we're going to see what, let's get a teaser for addressing line number 2 next time we're going to do. Again, guys, subscribe because I'm going to microanalyze this entire stream, okay? I'm going to have more criticism of Harris and a lot more criticism of Daniel, but I'm also going to try to make, you know, obviously that Harris made some really good points and he did really well. Overall, he did better than me, and I'm going to highlight when he did well. And I'm going to also try my best to highlight when Daniel made a good point, okay? Again, I know we're biased and all, and it's hard to remain unbiased, but I'm going to try my best to be as objective as possible and try to like hunt for any good points that Daniel makes and tell you that Daniel made a good point, okay? So if you like this level of microanalyzing an entire debate stream, then make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell to see when we're going live next. I'm actually right after this. I'm gonna set up the part 2 of this so you can see when the next part 2 is. I don't know when it's gonna be, so you'll just make sure you hit the notification bell. But just for the teaser for the next time, let's see what the line number 2 is that we need to address. Hold on.
Wants to pretend like his problem is with Islam, but in reality, his criticisms of Islam apply to every single religion and every traditional form of culture.
Oh my God, line number 2 is going to be so easy to respond to, okay? But I'm not going to respond to it right now because this is going to go forever if I do. But we're going to respond to line number 2 and number 3 and number 4. And then when eventually they start fighting, we're going to address that as well. yeah. So, oh, there's a. Let me tell you one more thing, and I'm going to read the live chat after I say this. There's a part of Harris Sultan, his second opening. I'm going to skip his second opening, and I'm going to just tell you why I'm going to skip Harris Sultan's second opening, because I think it got too philosophical, and I think why I know he did that, but he went on this ontological discussion about the nature of morality and the source of morality, which I could see why he wanted to do that. I just don't think that was the best use of his time for his second opening, and I will tell you why I don't think it was a good time. But because it took a while, I'm going to skip that part. Let me know in the comment section if you agree that I should skip that part, or if you want me to analyze Harris Sultan's second opening as well. Anyways, let me take a look at the live chat a little bit before we head out. Guys, make sure you subscribe. There's probably going to be part 50 at the speed we're going. Daniel's making Islam the victim. I don't know what that means. Let me see. No, but Harris has said that every Muslim country is not doing well and correlated it to the practices of Islam. So he isn't that off. I mean, I would agree that Islam has a negative effect on a country's economic prosperity, like or on its growth, just like other religions do as well. But I think a lot of people think that when you say that, you're saying that, oh, therefore, if a country has Islam, they must be suffering. And if I could find you a country that has Islam but is not economically suffering, that would disprove the point. It's not binary. That's not what we're saying. We're saying that all else being equal, Islam has a negative effect. It's not just Islam that has an effect on the economy. There's many other factors. But Islam and other religions, or anything else, any other belief system that is not based on reality and making decisions based on belief systems that don't match reality, will have a negative effect on your economy. That's not an extraordinary claim. That's a tongue twister for me. I can't speak for some reason. Let me see. Danielle, you said that twice now, so I'm not going to read that. Yeah, he's saying Harris is a good point. Yeah, Harris is going to make a lot of good points. Just because I am going to criticize Harris, it doesn't mean that he doesn't make good points. On average, Harris made a lot more good points than Daniel is going to make. But I'm going to try my best, okay, to look for good points. If I fail, because obviously we're all biased, if you notice Daniel making a good point that I don't notice, let me know in the live chat in the upcoming streams, okay? Because I'm really trying to be objective here, okay? Guys, let me know one question, both in the live chat and later in the comment section. Do you think I did a good job at being objective? Like, I could take feedback from you guys. Like, if you think I was unfair, or if I didn't make a good point, or even if I did. Like, I noticed I made some personal attacks on Daniel. It was kind of like a joke. It's just fine, I think. But I think I could reduce a little bit of that. I think it's the personal, like when I say Daniel said something stupid, that is not a personal attack, because that is about a specific point he's making, not about him as a whole. I'm like, if I say, Daniel, that is so dumb, you shouldn't say that, this is so embarrassing, this is so ridiculous. Those are not personal attacks, because you are making that statement about the argument that was just made. Okay, but I think I noticed I made at least one personal attack on Daniel himself, so I should notice that and stop that, I think. All right, this is too much fun. I could go on for hours, but I should go. Thank you guys. I do enjoy the compliments, but do also include criticism as well. Like, I'm not saying don't compliment me. I'm going to be honest. Your compliments do give me motivation. And like when people appreciate what I'm doing and tell me that I'm doing a good job, I'm not going to say like, oh, no, don't just give me criticism. Don't give me feedback. I don't need feedback. I don't give me compliments. I don't need compliments. That's a lie. I do need compliments. We are human. We do need to feel appreciated, to be motivated to do what we're doing. So if you do have compliments, leave that in the comment section. It does help me continue to do these things. Okay. Anyways, I was gonna say love you guys, but I also promised you to be more honest. So I'm not gonna say I love you guys. I'm gonna say I like you very much, and I very much appreciate your time here with me. So until next time, bye.